So welcome back to the front of the car. You may not recognise it because I finally got some good lighting so you can see what I see. When I took the radiator out, I found there was two main issues. One is that I'm only wearing one glove, like some kind of Michael Jackson, but that's mostly because this is my last one. No, partly was this is what the radiator mount looked like, so I've had to replace them. And the other thing was this support bar down here was quite rusty, so I've already brushed back a lot of the rust and given it some rust treatment. Now just going to go over it with some nice rust converting paint. And there we go, much better. So as you know, we need a new radiator, and here it is. It wasn't much more than a cheap Chinese copy, so it made sense to go with the original. The people who sold this also make aftermarket radiator mounts, because the official Toyota ones were like double the price of these, so hopefully these are alright. Let's see how well they fit. Here's the new radiator mount, and this should just slip nicely. Oh, that's perfect fit. Let's just try the other one. I can't imagine it being any different yet. So now, just to get these in the car, ready for the radiator. So like I said, Toyota actually make replacements of these, but they're about 40 quid a pop. And these aftermarket ones, they were, I think, 40 quid for the pair. So in case anyone else needs them, I'll leave a link to them below. Also, I don't know if you can get them outside the UK, but hopefully this will pop into that hole as easy as it went for the radiator. So let's see. I expect it's to be a bit more of a challenge because it's a bigger thing to get in. My paint job has probably just made the hole a bit smaller. So far, not going very well. So I've got this, which is actually for putting bicycle tyres on, but I think as it's plastic, it's less likely to damage my paint. Let's see if I can wang that in with that. Well, it took some doing, but finally managed to get it in. I found the trick for anyone watching at home was just to put a huge amount of pressure on top. I put my whole body weight on it, and then slowly just prodding the sides in with some kind of plastic tool. I did unfortunately scratch the paint a little bit, but it's better than nothing, and now they're ready to accept the new radiator. Here's my lovely Mishimoto radiator, and here's my new fan. Now I've already put a what they call a super seal connector on this. I need to do the other one in the car, so that's good to go. Just need to mount the fan. Of course, that's a pole fan, so I need the radiator the other way up. And I'm going to think about this for a second. Well, it probably doesn't really matter, but I'm going to put the fan in the same position that the original one was, which is the driver's side, or passenger side if you're in America, I suppose. So that's the top back of the radiator, so that must be the driver's side. So I want to mount my fan something like that. Now, I don't know if this fan is going to be enough. I hope it is, but if not, I can always buy a second one and wire them in parallel. There's plenty of scope to do that. This fan comes with a mounting kit, which is these sort of almost like cable ties, but not, and then springs and clips and foam feet. I'm hoping I might actually be able to start the engine and see how the coolant goes today. If I can get this radiator in and get the coolant full, I can then start her up, count the leaks. I know, like, technically it's fine to push things through the fins, but it just feels horrible doing this beautiful radiator. Okay, so I'm happy with how tight that's on now. I can lift up the entire radiator by the fan, and the radiator is pretty light. So I'm just going to cut these off, see how that looks. As long as I haven't royally fucked up, this will be on the driver's side, or the right hand side of the car. Well, right hand side if you're looking from the back to the front. This will be in the right place, and this will be pointing up. So this is now ready to go back into the car for a trial fit. There's a couple things I want to do. First is just going to tape some cardboard over the main fins to protect it while I'm putting it in. I'll just sit there and just try and protect the fins, and I'll do this one on the other side to cover the whole length. And the final thing to do before trying this in the car is the temperature sensor. This is a temperature sensor that came out of Misty's original radiator. Bloody hope the threads are the same. They should be, because this radiator is for an MR2. Yep, they look the same to me. The O-ring on this is shot, so I've got a replacement for that. So let's get that in there. That's a bit concerning because there's nothing in there for this O-ring to mount to, so I don't need to replace it after all, but what I might try and do is see if I've got an O-ring that fits over that instead, that will just mount against here. Or maybe you're supposed to use some PTFE, maybe? Oh, hang on, yeah. The bung has an O-ring at the top, so that's definitely the right move. Right, so I've gotten the O-ring off the blanking plug that came with it. Yeah, it does. Well, I'll try that, and if it leaks, it leaks, but I'm hoping. Maybe I should just wrap some PTFE around the threads as well, just to give myself that extra bit of protection. Apologies for the awkward angle. My primary goal here is getting the radiator in, so I'm hoping it won't fit straight down. I'm hoping I don't have to go from underneath. I'm hoping I can kind of put it in at an angle and then pull it back up again. Let's see how that goes. Unfortunately, the hoses are in the way. So I finally got the radiator in place. It took a long time and I didn't bother filming it because I just wanted to get it done. What I ended up doing was removing the radiator hoses entirely, so that gave me more room to get it in place, and I also loosened the hard pipes there, which made it much easier to get the hoses back in place. So what I need to do now is attach my connector for the fan to the car side, and then we're pretty much done. So here's the connector that I've made for the fan. I just need to put a matching connector here. I figured this out last time, promptly forgot. It's easier to put the weather shielding on before stripping the wires back. Right, so I've got that one on. It's tight like a tiger though. We are ready to crimp. But that's a success. Oh my god. Oh fuck my life. I just crimped the wrong kind of connector onto it and I got it, I did it well. Oh you motherfucker. Luckily I think I've got one spare of the little red thing, so if I can uncrimp this and... Oh, it went so well. Cool out of practice from. That's the other end, I want the long thin one. Well, that one didn't go as well as the last one, but we'll see. Yeah, it's a good solid connection. Yeah, that one felt good. Just got to angle these in until they click. So I finally got it in, but I haven't actually felt it click or heard it click, and I think the problem is I misunderstood the instructions when they talk about the wire size and what size plug to use. I assumed they meant wire gauge, but I think they're actually talking about the diameter of the wire including its sheathing. So I've used the red plugs, which go up to I think 2.5mm, which would have been fine by the gauge of the wire, but those are much wider than 2.5mm, so I'm struggling to fit it in. On the plus side, it's pretty well in there. I don't think it's going to rattle out. So as long as it makes a good connection, I'm going to leave it, but if I do find that it does work its way loose, then I'll replace it with the next size up. So now I just need to figure out how to test that. So I've had a look at the wiring diagram and I've consulted my spiritual guide, and I'm pretty sure that in order to test the fan, all I need to do is plug the battery back in, bridge this connector here, as this is the one that comes from the coolant temperature sensor. So we need to trick it into thinking that the coolant is hot, and then just turn on the ignition. And we should get the fan spinning. So let's try that. I don't hear a fan. It's not a good start. I've got the ignition on again, but I've got the fan disconnected. So I first want to see if I'm getting any voltage to this. Okay, so we're getting 12 volts to this, definitely. So that means either this connector isn't working or the fan is dead on arrival, which would really suck. So First thing I want to make sure is the polarity's right, so blue is definitely live and the white and black is definitely ground. So I think I need to switch these anyway. Reading the instructions for a pole fan, I need blue to be ground and black to be live. So I'll switch those around, but I also need to try and figure out why I'm not getting a connection. It might be that, like I said, I didn't get these to click in, so they're not far enough to actually bridge the gap to the connector in there. So I'll do some investigation and then come back to that. Right, time for take two. I've redone the connector on here and I used some silicone lube to really kind of help insertion. Hopefully now when I turn the key we'll hear the fan spin up. Still hear no fan. Turns out I had it a little bit backwards. This sensor is actually only open when it doesn't want the fan to run. So that way if there's a break in the wire or the sensor fails, the fan will run. So now I've taken my bridge out of the sensor. If we reconnect this, we have a fan. Now I've got the new radiator in, you can finally get back to what started this whole mess was when I was trying to set the radiator up for bleeding the cooling system and discovered I couldn't remove the bleeder valve and then found the radiator was shot anyway. So one of the reasons I like this Mishimoto one is the bleed valve is on top, so let's remove that. Clear off this PTFE, get this length of hose. Now I need to suspend this hose somewhere from the bonnet, trunk, front, whatever you want to call it. Through here is probably a good place. Here we go. So that's 3 turns, so hopefully that should let the coolant come up. So now we're ready to start filling the cooling system. So in order to make my life a little bit easier, and because I'm cheap, I've just cut a bottle open here, and it's almost the right size. I've just put a little O-ring around there, so it just snugs into that hole perfectly. Been around, checked all the hoses and everything are all on and tight and good. Got 15 litres of coolant, let's go. So that's 5 litres in. I'm going to go and have a look under the car. I assume there's no leaks. Carry on. So far so good, can't see any leaks, can't hear any leaks, and my makeshift funnel is working very well, so here's to the next 5 litres. We've already got it starting to bubble up this hose here. I'll just put some more in so you can see that, but that's got to be a good sign. So I've not quite got 10 litres in yet, and as you can see now it's not dropping down here anymore, and that's because the air is still coming out through the radiator end. So I think I'm just going to leave that because I'd like to get a bit more in before I start running the engine, but then when I run the engine that's really going to start sucking it all through and hopefully clear some more space. Can't find any leaks under the car yet, can't hear anything, so far so good. Keep my fingers crossed. So I just read a pretty good tip to try and get the last bits of air out, and that is to just give these lines a bit of a squeeze, and what else there you go, you get some bubbles out. There we go. I'll go to the other side of the engine as well. Oh, that's a good one. I've left it like this for a good hour while I had some lunch, partly to see if any more air would come out and partly because I forgot to make sure the battery was charged, so that's now fully charged. There's been no leaks, everything should be good to go, so I'm going to start the engine and hope that everything goes well. I think you can see there's a lot of smoke rising off the engine there. It's a bit concerning, so just stopped it so I can investigate. So I couldn't find any leaks. I'm guessing the smoke is just oil burning off the exhaust. It's probably the longest we've run the car for so far. I've topped up the coolant a bit to replace what's gone down. So start the car again and see how it goes. So I stopped it that time because I just noticed the axles are spinning and one of them is just held precariously by a piece of wire. I'm guessing I've left it in gear. Should have checked that. So I'm going to take it out of gear and then we'll try again. Pretty sure it is in neutral, but maybe it wasn't quite. I've just double checked it, so I'm going to start it again. But if the axles keep spinning, I suppose that could mean that it's just like the cold oil, I don't know. This is a gearbox of you know, unknown condition. We bought it used quite a while ago, so hopefully there's nothing wrong with the gearbox. Status report. It's hot as hell and I got a headache from breathing exhaust fumes. Every time I start the engine, the coolant temperature gauge and the dashboard rises up really quickly, and I'm turning it off just before it gets to the red because I don't want to risk overheating it. I know the coolant pump is working because, you know, I can see water moving, it's been burping a bit, and I don't think the thermostat is the issue. I think the problem is there's a big pocket of air in the engine, and the reason I think that is because I've put, I think, about 11 litres, just shy of 11 litres of coolant in, and this takes 13.5. So there's 2.5 litres missing somewhere. I can't get any more bubbles out the front end. So I've read online what you can do is jack up the back end a bit higher, and that will help get the air out of the engine. So that's what I'm going to try now. I had a quick check about the whole axle spinning in neutral. Apparently that's normal, like with motorbikes. When you've got cold oil in the gearbox, it means there can be enough friction. So hopefully that's all fine. And the oil level light has been going on and off, which clearly means the connection I rigged up isn't good enough. So that's something for another day, but for now, jack up the rear end to see if I can get some more air to bubble out. So minor change of plans. Our piddly little jack couldn't lift the back end any higher, so instead I've lowered the front end and already seen a drop in the coolant that I had in the funnel there, so that's a good sign. I was also doing some reading and I learned something rather annoying, which is that when refilling the coolant from scratch, you should really open up this extra bleeder here on the thermostat housing. That's not mentioned in the official service manual, but apparently that lets the air out, and of course I haven't done that, it's a bit late for that now. So at least we've got some more in and hopefully some more air out, so I'm going to keep filling up and see how it goes. Still no leaks, so I've topped up the coolant a bit again. I've also put the axle back into the hub, just kind of loosely, just so it's not dangling precariously by a piece of wire. And so now ready to start up the engine and see what happens. My main thing I'm hoping for is not to have the temperature shoot up. Right, so I've lost track of what I have and haven't recorded, so I'm just going to do a quick recap. That is, I still haven't got all the air out of the system. What's happening is, I start the engine and the temperature gauge rises up and it keeps rising, and I have to turn it off before it overheats. And then when I do that, I can feel that all the pipes around the engine are warm, the pipes going off to the heater matrix are warm, there's warm air coming out of the heater matrix, but these pipes down here that go off to the radiator are stone cold, so for some reason the thermostat just isn't opening. I'm hoping it's just a big airlock there that I'm just struggling to clear out, but the other option is the thermostat that I bought was dead on arrival and needs replacing, which would really suck. I've tried back end up, I've tried level, I've tried front end up, I've even tried just raising this back right hand corner in an attempt to get any air out of it, or I lower that back end corner and raise the other one, I can't remember. I've tried so many combinations of trying to get it out, so what I'm going to do now is, I mentioned earlier there's this bleed nut on the thermostat housing that I didn't know about, so it didn't open. I'm going to try opening that now and see if air comes out, I know there's an airlock. If coolant comes straight out, then it's a case of dropping the coolant level and taking the thermostat out and seeing if that's the problem. So I was just about to crack that bleeder bolt, and then you can see very well unfortunately, but I noticed there's actually quite a lot of dampness below the thermostat housing, so turns out there is a leak somewhere. I guess it's quite a minor one because I've not noticed anything on the floor. So now I'm going to try and figure out what that is and if I can fix it. I'm going to call it a video there. I think I've got quite a lot done. It's already quite a long video at this point. Finding a leak around the water pump is a good stopping place because I don't really know what I'm going to do next. Honestly, it's really quite disheartening. I mean, the water pump is probably the worst place to find a leak. It's going to be the most difficult to diagnose and fix, but that's for the next episode. Like I said, really happy with the radiator and those mounts I got. I'll put a link. It's GT4 Play. They primarily do silica stuff, but they also do a bunch of MR2 things, so I'll put a link down in the description because I really recommend them. Otherwise, thanks for watching. See if I can figure this out next time.